Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Fairchild in Clearwater County. And today we are going to talk about earmarks, and we are going to build a bypass around Fairchild. Now, these two topics I think are really important. Number one, earmarks are setting aside directly from Congress specific funds for specific projects in specific congressional districts. So they are very controversial. In some circles, earmarks are seen as pork barrel spending, or spending that is spent lavishly on projects that really don't deserve it, monuments to a congressperson. In other circles, earmarks are seen as a way to kind of level the playing field, give Congress the ability to appropriate some funds on projects directly rather than expecting that all to come from the executive branch. Regardless of where you fall on it, it's something that has come back in a big way recently. So in this particular Congress that we have right now, earmarks have been returned to the forefront. Earmarks prior to this have been banned since about 2010, and it has been interesting to see what has happened as a result of that. Certain types of projects are really only fundable with earmarks or with a federal appropriation, and as we've seen, at least in the US in the last number of years, it's very difficult to get a transportation bill passed, and for the other types of projects that earmarks cover, it could really only come in an omnibus bill, which happens during budget reconciliation. So lots of confusing stuff there, and the main thing to think about with an earmark is that a local municipality or a state government could talk directly with a congressperson and request funding for a certain project. Now, where this is really interesting is that the funding that the local match funding can be dramatically less than in a normal appropriation process. So if you were to go and get a highway project done like this project with state DOT money, this would likely be funded from the federal government at 80% federal funding, 20% state funding, and the road would have to be constructed to federal standards. So that's great, but what if you don't have that kind of money, or the area where this highway is going doesn't justify that kind of expense? Well, in that case, it might just not ever be done. But in some instances, states, local governments might understand that reconstructing a highway could lead to massive development potential in an area that right now cannot afford this project. So there are opportunities with earmarks. You could, instead of having 80-20 funding, you could have 95-5 or 100% federal funding for a project. So very interesting opportunities. You could also fund projects that aren't roads. You could fund community centers, schools, really you name it. And they're allocated directly to those congressional districts. And there's a little bit of horse trading that goes on with this to get the funding approved. So it's a very interesting process, and it's currently happening right now. I'm not sure that it's going to exist forever. We'll have to see what happens with Congress, but for the time being, it is there. So we are going to take advantage of this today. The congressman for this area, which her name is Janet Schult, she is requesting that local governments submit their earmark requests. And what has come from Fairchild and local Department of Transportation is a request for a bypass of Fairchild. Now, this bypass will likely have to go under the airport. We're going to have to find good routing for this. And then we are going to we're going to basically change the priority of the movements here to focus vehicles onto this bypass and around the community. So this is bad news for our new pilot gas station, but it's still good news for the community as a whole. Now, these folks would be protesting this. I would expect to see a sign right here saying no bypass. And you would have major retailers sniffing around because bypasses are generally good for them. Opens up new land for development, and maybe they could build something in that new developable area. So here's why we're doing it. If we take a look here, let's get rid of all of these except for trucks and click on this. What we're going to see is we have significant truck movements heading right down Main Street through the community. That is not ideal. We would like to keep these trucks having access to the community, but we don't want to direct them directly into the community. That's not ideal. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to win some earmarked funding, and we are going to direct this around the airport, underneath one of the runways, and then around the community. So I want to start in the most important area, and that is really right here, because we're going to have to create an interchange for this area. So I'm going to pause the game, and that's going to happen for a significant portion of this episode. Actually, no, I don't like doing that. So what we're going to do is let's build a temporary road. So we'll come over here, select this, and this will be a quick and dirty road, but we'll keep the game moving. Because time doesn't stop because you want to construct a road. So there we go. That is terrible. And then we'll get rid of these. There's still a way to get to the airport, but that's not good enough. That's not going to work. So we will also build a temporary access to the airport. And who knows, this could become a permanent access to the airport. There we go. So the airport has access, the highway's cut off, everyone is sad. And that is exactly how it's going to be while our new bypass is constructed. So I want to first start out with my terrain heights because we're going to see where we're going to come in. Now I need there to be some difference in terrain here. I think we're going to use that to our advantage. So we are going to start out, first of all, we have our rural highway here. We're going to need to upgrade some of that. And you're going to see why momentarily. One of the main reasons for this is we just have, we don't have ramps or anything like that with this rural highway, and we're going to want to see that. So the very first thing I'm going to do is, I guess, look at the sky. We're going to pop through here, and I want a very curved road to come up and around here. So we're going to come through here, come at a 90, and we're going to really loop this around. And I don't want to get this too close to the airport. We're going to be mindful of the future. There is the chance that in the future this gets upgraded to something larger, and we should be aware of that. We also should be aware of this border here. This is not going to work. We don't want folks driving through that barricade there. There we go. Much better. Now it's funny to see all of these vehicles still coming down here. I'm not eliminating this because we might reuse a portion of this, and we want to leave the option available to us. So what we're going to start out with actually is starting to think about some of our movements here. So we have this road here, and I want to start creating some ramps. So what we'll do is use a whole bunch of anarchy. So, when you have anarchy available, you might as well take advantage of it. And that's what we're going to do. So we'll have a nice ramp coming through here. That'll get you back off this way. And then we're going to convert this into a ramp exiting. Now, I find it endlessly fascinating that people are deciding that that is a faster route. But, who am I to judge, I suppose? I am in no position. They can do whatever they like. All right, from there, so we now have a couple of movements figured out. If you were coming from the other side of the community, you can get into town. But if you were coming from this highway and you wanted to get over here, you would need a bridge. Same thing if you were coming from town and wanted to leave this way, you'd need a bridge as well. So let's start out with that one. So what we're going to do is create a bridge here, and we're going to start ramping up. And I'm not going to get too worried about my heights because we can fix all of that. We have mods, so we're going to take advantage. I'm going to actually bring this bridge over here so we can turn around nicely in this area, and I'll probably end up adjusting this some. Yeah, I want this to be a little bit tighter, so let's clean it up. And maybe something we should do is connect these. So we're going to do that right away too. And now the fun work of actually making this rational. So let's focus on our heights because that'll distract me. And I'll bring this to be a little bit closer. Now that I'm thinking about it, with the speed you have on a ramp like this, you're going to actually need it to be a bit more gentle around this corner. So we're going to spread this out and give a bit more room for this turnaround here. There we go. So it kind of slingshots you back around. And we've got some height issues. We'll resolve those down the line, or I'll just do it now because it's easy. I'm going to pop through here with a bit of node controller, and I'm going to choose my top heights here. Rather not node controller, I'm going to use my set slope and set the slopes there. There we go. And we're going to take away some of these bridge structures down the line, but for the time being, this will do the trick. Now we're going to need one more bridge coming up and meeting over here, because right now if you wanted to come from this road and get into town, there's no way to do it. So that's going to be a bit of a trick. I think we're going to need to go up and over this, and we might be able to get away with that. So this project would be absolutely astronomically expensive, and that's okay. That's completely okay when you have an earmark like this, because this is the kind of project that would spur development in the community, and it would be the exact kind of project that you would expect to see earmark funding for. I might move this in just a bit, kind of going back a little bit on what I was saying, because of the bridge structure that we're about to put together. Kidding. And here I'm just going to turn off everything so that I can just focus on getting this exactly where I want it to be, and we'll truth it afterwards. Okay, so now I just want to make sure, so we have a movement that allows us to go up and over. If we were coming back this way, we can go straight through. If we want to go over here, that's just a straight shot through. So I believe this is all of our movements being covered. So we should be in a fairly good spot here. We just need to really clean this up, because right now it's fairly broken. So you can tell that the heights are way off, all messed up. Not a problem. We can deal with that. So the one spot you see the heights are pretty extreme is right here. So we're going up and over this highway, and we've got a lot going on there. So I don't want this bridge. First of all, it's not all going to be a bridge, but I don't want it to end up being so high that it's incredibly expensive. This is a rural highway after all, so we just need to be aware of that. We're going to minimize our bridge structures as much as we can. And let's get started on some of that right away. So we're just going to upgrade some of these to be ground level. And even through here, I think we need another node to make this a little bit more rational. So we'll add a node right there, and then we'll be able to upgrade this. Yeah, that's a lot better. So now we've got some things happening here. some not so great things. You can see right here, I'm going to change this to a slope, and that will help us a bit. And truthfully, there are probably more than a number. There are probably a number of places where we could benefit from setting these to slope. And then there are other places like this where we have a node that doesn't need to be there anymore. It's a kind of a legacy node, and you see that that drops things down, which will help us with our bridge. And we should look for those nodes to make sure that we don't have any of those. Now, some of those are necessary, and if you don't have them there, things will break. But in some cases, those nodes are getting in the way. And that was one of the cases right there. Then here's when we just need to switch it back just a little bit, and then we'll lower this bridge. Okay, so I'm really liking where this is going so far. We're just setting some more slopes, cleaning these up. You can see that some of the angles coming in here are pretty harsh. So we're just going through here and making the end straight, sloping things up. We can even bring this closer in some cases, and that'll improve the heights of things as well. So now this bridge, the heights look okay, good enough. So we'll live with that. All right, so I am feeling much better about the direction that this is heading in. A couple of wonky areas, obviously, and we'll have to hit our nodes in all the places. I'm going to do that real quickly. And now let's go through and slope one more time. And now I'm noticing there's a node here that's doing some weird things. And I'm just going to test out a couple of different things before I just see that I might need to modify the terrain here just a little bit. You can see that it's bending up and bending down and doing a bunch of weird things that aren't super desirable, so I will just manually tap this one down a little bit. Part of that is we have the slope setting here, but I think that's desirable because the alternative is we have a big flat bump there. So with this, it's all looking quite a bit better. We are going to now go through and do a little bit of our traffic management. And I'll find a few more places. Actually, that one doesn't need to be there. There we go. So we are going to need to do a few things here to fix this. The very first thing we're going to need to do is pop into here, the traffic manager, and look at our lane connectors. Click on this, use Control S, and that'll keep people in their lanes. There are also a couple of other places where I'm seeing some oddball stuff. We'll take care of those in just a minute as well. So right here, for instance, we're probably going to want 2 lanes here, even if that's only temporarily. So we're going to go with our 2 and 2 lanes, upgrade that, do the exact same thing here, and then we'll merge down eventually. And that should smooth things out. We have 2 and 2 lanes there. We'll work that out in just a little bit. Okay, another spot I noticed, kind of a weird thing. You might notice this sometimes where you get an empty spot. You just gotta set this to bend or middle, and that'll fix it. And depending, this is a bend, but it's also in the middle. It can have a different outcome in terms of how exactly this flattens or doesn't. So just give it your best guess and take a look. Now, one place I'm very unsatisfied with is right here. You'll notice that there's a bump there. I'm going to set the object height here. That's a little bit better. We've come through here. You can see that there's some interesting things happening. I'm going to see if setting this one to flat actually improves this. And I think it actually does quite a bit. You can always check that with terrain heights. Yeah, you can see that that's a lot better. Then you're coming down here into some slopes. Not ideal, but significantly better than it was before. Now this one is challenging. We haven't built that road yet, so I'll worry about that when the time comes. Now I am going to spend just a moment of my time doing a bit of lane marking, and I'm not going to make you watch that. So I will come back in just a moment with the lanes marked, and we'll take a look at what I did. Okay, so I've gone through and I've done some lane marking, and I've noticed that there are a couple of places where I might want to do something just a little bit different. Right here is one of those areas where I think we could benefit from having 2 lanes and an extra lane potentially. So we can do a couple of things here as well. So we're going to come into node controller. I'm going to click this. I want this to line up with this one. So we'll scoot that over, and then we'll come here and do some lane marking stuff. Now it has our previous selection. I don't think any of these are going to work. Why don't we give it a shot? Yeah, that's not going to work. So we're not going to apply it. We'll just start fresh. There we go. So that cleans things up a bit. I got this one spot here too. I'm not going to worry about this one because I think we're going to change the roads leaving here. So there are other spots where we could potentially clean it up, but this is pretty darn good. And what you're seeing is that we're prioritizing this movement around and not the movement into the city. And we're going to de-emphasize this movement even more in just a little bit, but I do want to bring this road, we're going to urbanize this down to this spot down here. So back to the future, I guess, because this is what was here before. Whoops. So, what's old is new, what's new is old. So looking at the airport, ooh, we had a fire. Let's just ignore that. We need to get around the airport, and there are a couple of ways that we could do this. We could go all the way around the airport, and if we take a look at our measure it tool, let's just see one end of the airport. That is over a mile. That is not going to happen. The other alternative is we tunnel underneath. So if we were to go here, it's 1,645 feet. It's pretty extreme. Over here, we're looking at about 1,000. So we're saving 500 feet of bridging by inconveniencing people a little bit. So that's the route that we're likely going to take as long as our terrain suits it, and it does. So let's go ahead and get this road moving over here. But I really want to get this tunnel right, so that's what we're going to do first. So let's choose a very short piece. We'll click on this, our tunnel, and let's start that right here. Send that underground, maybe we'll go 10 meters. And for whatever reason, it's very, very unhappy about this. So we are going to give it a shot without collision on and see what happens. We didn't get a tunnel. So that is a bit concerning to me, because that makes me think that this asset may not have a tunnel. which isn't the end of the world. We're going to need to be aware of that. So I will use the big urban roads that we were using, and we'll pop out of there. We're going to need to look at our terrain, and we need to turn pretty quickly. There we go. And we've got the wrong segment upgraded, and oh, look at that. That's not good enough. Okay, so this is good enough now. We have our collision off and things are all messy, but we'll get that cleaned up. This is where we wanted to approximately be. We're going to have to adjust the heights after. It gets pretty messy when you're trying to be very precise, and that just kind of comes with the territory. Here, you're going to leave this on. We'll come up after about 10 units, and then we'll just pop it right up. And that didn't connect. That's frustrating. Okay, so now that we have this mostly where we want it to be, I'm going to get the tunnels back as far as I can get them. So that's going to be a mixture of kind of coming through here, going underground and above ground, try to get this to line up as nicely as I can. And then unfortunately we are going to have that weird segment there up. We'll need to contend with. I am going to take this back because I want to get this back to the terrain height. And then we can slope this appropriately to make this work for us. I just want to come back through here. You can see that that is a pretty intense incline. So we are going to kind of bring it down a little bit with Move It. There we go. I could continue to fight with this all day because I have it in my personality to do so. But that is not the right decision. So we're going to we're not going to let perfect be the enemy of good here. We are going to just try to get this to be as good as we can get it. That's a pretty good little span there. It's not too long. And I like it. I like it. So let's go back. We're going to select our road. And now we're going to try to choose a good path to get here. So we really should be grading this. And I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to do is pick this terrain height that we've kind of landed at. We'll pull that out a little bit. And we'll get to our dominant terrain height, which will be right here. Right mouse click here. Slope up into it. And then I'm going to fill a bit of this in. Now this would be a problem in general because you could see that there would be ponding in this. It goes down a few meters. So I think that knowing that we're doing work here, we're going to resolve that right up front and just fill this in. Truthfully, we probably could have gone up one more terrain height so that it's not a bowl. There we go. That is better. Now for the most part, I think from here on out, we just need to pick a straight path. So that's what we're going to do. And then we need to come back around and meet up with this road over here. And I want this to feel like it's mirroring this in some way. And then we'll use our curved road to make our final connection. Oh, that's nice. That is very nice. And we could have used planning roads here, and maybe there would be some value to that, but we didn't go that route, unfortunately. So I'm going to stick with it. We're just going to keep doing what we shouldn't be doing. We're going to go ahead and just continue to use our main highways. So we'll have to live with a bit of oddness here. So I am going to flatten a bit here and make our path. Now I want this to be as straight as I can make it. So we're going to come through and pre-grade this. And then the DOT would likely ask the city where this is where the land for this road should be. There would likely be official mapping documents for this kind of corridor. We're going to connect it up probably right about here. So we're going to need to come from this spot and slope down. So we're going to choose this as our top terrain height and then come from here. We want to have a view of it. And we'll slope. So now we should be able to come in here with our road, and I can turn on our terrain heights. We can see where the path is. We've created a very easy to find path. Now let's loop this around here. We didn't do a great job here. I think we could get this to be even straighter, so we're going to do just that. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. There are a number of homes here that bought their properties thinking, boy, I had a forest behind me. It's beautiful. And I really would feel for them. This is something that you see all too often. Folks buy some property with the thought that it's going to be what it is right now. forever. So be that a new development where there's a cornfield or a development that has an old growth forest behind it, if you don't own that land, you just never really know what that land could become. Now, if you are in that spot, if you're looking to buy new property, thinking of building somewhere, I'd highly encourage you to look for plats. Look for plats and look at your local land use plans. If that land is going to remain what it is, it will be designated as an environmental corridor or protected green space. And if you don't see that in there, it's not a park. You don't really know what that's going to be. You don't. So don't think of it as your own private forest, because it very well could become this. So this is an extreme example. Obviously, I don't think that land behind your house is going to become a highway, but you never know. And I really think it's important to be prepared for all scenarios. So now we've got this looping around the airport, and look at all of the land that this would have opened up for development. You look back here, and all we see are just a sea of land. And if you get some power lines back here, you've got a highway, you get an interchange over here, and you could see a commercial center with excellent access. The first thing I would expect to see would be a gas station or something like that, particularly since this is no longer the most desirable path. Now, right now, we're not connected, and as a result, we see a whole bunch of freight traffic. We're going to change this. We're going to change the character of downtown, and we're going to make this a less desirable route. I still want it to be available if someone needs to bring freight into town, but we don't want to make this the desired path, the one that we're prioritizing. So we're going to pause for a second. We're going to sever this connection, and then we'll grab this and loop this down. Now for this, we'll back it out just a bit, and then we'll come through here totally not thinking about the terrain or the topography, not respecting it one bit, which is probably a fool's errand. No, look at that. That's not bad. That is not bad. We can fix that, and we're going to. There we go. So we've got this prioritized now. Let's change our junction. So we'll come through here, put a stop sign there, and I do want to just do a little bit of a sloping before we change and check everything out. Now, I think we did a pretty darn good job of grading this up front, so we shouldn't have all that much to worry about. Look at that. A lot of those were zeros. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Very good. Very, very good. Yeah, so not much to worry about here at all. We have this entryway too. Let's get this upgraded. I think we are going to save this. I think it's sufficient. I do wonder about what we're doing here. I think that we're going to need to change this just a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll add a turn lane here. And then we'll need to look at our nodes, because this isn't, I don't love what's happening here. So it's actually not going to work for us unless we had more lanes, and I don't want more lanes. So what I'm going to do is just extend this out. Actually, better idea. We'll just have a small roundabout right here. We're going to need to change the power situation here. So I'm going to pause it for just a moment because I don't want to destroy the city. And this should be a suitable solution. We'll need to change that road. We're not going to go with that. Here, we're going to change this. I'll upgrade this to our 2-lane. We probably could even go 3. Let's keep it modest. We'll go 2. And now this junction should really be cleaned up. We could do some of that though, just move it. And now I think that's a much more forgiving roundabout. We'll come through here. We need to set this up, and we're going to convert this road, but I do want to spend just a moment getting our lane markings correct. So 1 second for that. Okay, so I've come through here and made a number of what I believed were improvements, but I see that I've created a problem. So I've forced some movements through here, and now I see a whole bunch of traffic funneling through our airport. I don't know that that is what we were intending to do. Let's just see. I just want to make sure that that's just a temporary thing. Yeah, that's not good. So the fix to that is going to be to add another node. because right now they're not able to switch. Oh, and they stopped. Interesting. So this node here will allow crossing, and hopefully that will solve all of our pathfinding problems. I set this up before. Basically, it's just something that could I use the default values, but I just ended up not really loving that idea. I wanted to customize it a little bit more, and in doing so, create a few problems. So I just want to make sure, and I don't see that happening. Interestingly, it's not giving me paths, so I don't know why that's happening. Now you see that they're just driving through this, which also is not what I wanted. So I manually set some paths here to force that movement so people wouldn't jump that curve. I'm okay with some crossing here if people want to. So we'll see what that does. I might have completely messed it up, and maybe I just need to not do what I was doing here. I also see that through the node here, I've got a crosswalk. It's on the blue one. If I come through here, I can just turn that off. And truthfully, I'm not sure what the rest of these really give me anyway. All is this one. Otherwise, I could do each of them individually based on the color. It's probably good enough. I still see a lot of people using this node incorrectly. So what that tells me is I just need to relent on what I was doing. So I will get rid of this filler, delete my lines, as sad as that is to do. And I'll just add the dashed line there, and we'll just call it a day. So with that, I should go back into Traffic Manager and fix all of these. I could even remove this node if I wanted to. I'm nervous that it's going to break a bunch of stuff, but we're going to try it. Looks okay. And now you see them coming through the way that they're supposed to. Very, very good. We can deal with that. We can deal with that. Now, Main Street is a bit of a mess here. So I did improve this, and I really like what this has done. This separates the road a bit. Here, I want to start to slow things down. So what we're going to do, I picked up this really cool road right here. It's this historic Main Street, and we're going to start that right about here. And let's zoom in and take a look at this. So what I love about this is we've got these red stones, trees, benches faced away from the road and towards the city. A nice, pleasant place to walk to McDonald's. So there we go. We've got these historic lights as well. Just very, very nice assets indeed by the Urbanist. So very cool. Check them out. It's got a whole urban roads collection. Just lovely assets. These come with these excellent crosswalks too, and it really gives a Main Street vibe. It also allows parking, which in a Main Street downtown kind of area is absolutely critical. You'll fight with the business owners if you don't provide the parking. It's not a fun conversation to have. So we'll get rid of that, and then over here we'll switch to these big urban roads before we go to the highway. And truthfully, I might just go with a big urban road all the way, just to slow it down a bit. So I think that this is going to be what changes our traffic pattern. Here it's the same thing. We've got this highway. Let's switch to our big urban road. And I would really prefer to have it twiddle, quite bluntly, but I don't have the asset available. So this is what we're going with. And then we'll add this here as well. The one thing I don't love about this is it adds stop bars. That's not really necessary. And I don't know if I can change that. Let's see. We'll turn it off the red. Yeah, we got rid of our stop bar. Very good. Very, very good. We should control this here. We'll add a stop sign there. And now I want to see what this has done to our traffic patterns. So I want to select here and look at that. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Now, when you select this road and we see where our freight vehicles are going, they're mostly taking our bypass. There are vehicles coming into our Air Force Reserve Base and into Fairchild, but they are going there to bring local supplies to the local community. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see freight traffic all the way through the town. And now when we pop in here, we should see, look at this. What we're seeing are cars, passenger traffic. That, whoa, jumpy a little bit. That is much better. And I'm guessing if we were to take a look at our traffic, there was significant traffic through this corridor before, and this is really calmed down. So this was absolutely necessary, and there's other things I want to do in the community. We have a really cool consolidated high school that we're going to put in right here, and a church, and a city hall, and then complete the growth here before we move on to our capital city. We also have a couple of improvements to make here at the truck stop, but I thought it was really important to focus on this build this particular time. And with that, there's only one thing we need to do, and that's zoom in close. We'll have a brief city tour. All right, and as it gets a little bit later in the community, I thought it'd be nice to take a look at Main Street and see how it feels now with our new street. And to me, this feels much more historic American downtown. Feels very good. A little bit of light, a little bit of character. A place that you'd want to go for a walk. A place that feels familiar to me anyway. I really like this. That doesn't feel so familiar. What are you doing there? No. Just dropping off a car casually at the bar. I guess a series of cars like it's an auto dealership. And truthfully, that's something we probably need here as well. Auto dealerships and some more auto-oriented uses. But for the time being, I think we're going to leave it here. I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider hitting that like button. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.